What if the fall of great empires didn't begin on the battlefield? What if it began quietly in the mint? A ruler clips a coin, a government lowers the silver content, a state prints more money to pay for wars it can no longer afford. At first, almost nobody notices. The coin still has the emperor's face on it. The paper still has the government seal. The numbers still look the same. But slowly, prices rise. Soldiers demand more pay. Merchants lose trust. Taxes become harder to collect. And ordinary people realize something terrifying. The money they worked for yesterday buys less today. This is the story of money, where it comes from, why empires depend on it, and how devaluing it helped bring some of history's greatest powers to their knees. What is money really? Before we talk about collapsing empires, we need to ask a simple question. What is money? Most people think money is cash, coins, notes, maybe numbers in a bank account. But money is not just a thing. Money is a system of trust. It has three main jobs. First, money is a medium of exchange. Instead of trading a goat for a sack of grain, you can sell the goat for money and use that money to buy whatever you need. Second, money is a unit of account. It lets a society measure value. A loaf of bread costs this much. A soldier is paid that much. A tax bill is calculated in this amount. Third, money is a store of value. It lets people move value through time. You work today, save the money, and hope it still buys something tomorrow. That third role is where empires often get into trouble. Because when rulers devalue money, they are not just changing coins or notes. They are changing the public's trust in the future. In Mesopotamia, temples and palaces recorded obligations on clay tablets. Grain, silver by weight, livestock, labor, and land could all be measured, owed, and transferred. In other words, money began as memory. Who owes what? Who paid tax? How much grain is stored? How many workers must be fed? That is why money and government grew together. The first states needed money, like systems to collect taxes, organize labor, feed armies, build temples, and manage trade. Money allowed rulers to turn a scattered population into an organized machine, but it also created a dangerous temptation. If the state controls the money, the state can manipulate the money, and once rulers discover that, history changes. Coins, kings, and empire. The first coins were probably made in Lydia, in what is now modern Turkey, around the 7th century BC. This was revolutionary. A coin was not just metal. It was metal with authority stamped onto it. The image on the coin said, has value because the state says it has value. Coins helped solve a practical problem. Instead of weighing metal every time people traded, the coin itself acted as a trusted unit. That made trade faster, taxation easier, army payment more efficient, markets wider and more connected. The Persian Empire used coinage to help manage a vast imperial system. Greek city-states used coins to pay soldiers, sailors, builders, and merchants. Athens had its famous silver owl coins, backed by the silver mines of Laurion. Coinage became a tool of power, but it also became a test, because a coin made a promise. This piece of money contains this amount of value. When rulers kept that promise, money strengthened the empire. When rulers broke it, the coin became propaganda, hiding a lie. Rome, the empire that debased its own trust. No empire shows the danger of monetary debasement more famously than Rome. For centuries, Roman money helped hold together one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. Coins paid soldiers on distant frontiers. Coins collected taxes from provinces. Coins carried the emperor's image from Britain to Egypt. Coins told everyone, Rome is real, Rome is powerful, Rome is stable. But Rome was expensive. The empire had to fund roads, armies, bureaucracy, public works, grain supplies, and endless border defense. As military pressure increased and political instability grew, emperors needed more money. One option was to raise taxes. Another was to reduce spending. But the easier option was to debase the coinage. That meant taking a silver coin and reducing the amount of silver inside it, while pretending it was worth the same as before. At first, this looked clever. The government could make more coins from the same amount of precious metal. Soldiers could still be paid. Debts could still be settled. The state bought itself time. But that time was borrowed against trust. As the silver content fell, people noticed. Merchants demanded more coins for the same goods. Soldiers demanded higher pay. Prices rose. Confidence weakened. By the 3rd century CE, Rome entered a period known as the crisis of the 3rd century. There were invasions, civil wars, breakaway empires, plagues, economic disruption, and behind it all, a monetary system losing credibility. Some Roman coins were made to look silver on the surface, even when their true silver content had collapsed. Think about what that says. The empire was not just short of money, it was disguising the weakness of its money. Eventually, Emperor Diocletian tried to restore order. He reformed the currency and issued the famous edict on maximum prices in 301 CE, attempting to control inflation by law. But price controls cannot magically restore trust. If the money is unstable and production is strained, and the state is desperate, a law cannot force reality to obey. Rome did not fall only because of bad money. That would be too simple. But bad money was a symptom and an accelerator of something deeper. The empire was making promises its economy could no longer support. China, paper money, silver, and the fragility of trust. While Rome shows the danger of debasing coins, China shows another chapter in the story, paper money. China has a long monetary tradition using bronze cash coins, but during the Song dynasty, paper money became increasingly important. This was one of the most important financial inventions in world history. Paper money had enormous advantages. It was lighter than metal, easier to transport, easier for government to issue, more flexible for trade, but paper money also depended almost entirely on confidence. A gold or silver coin has metal value. Paper money has trust value. That trust can be powerful, but it can also disappear. Under later dynasties, especially when governments faced war and fiscal pressure, paper money could be overissued. If too many notes chased too few goods, prices rose and confidence fell. Then came another monetary problem under the Ming dynasty. The Ming state increasingly relied on silver for taxation. Reform simplified taxes by converting many obligations into silver payments. In good times, this helped connect China to global trade. Silver flowed in from Japan and Spanish America. Markets expanded. But dependence creates vulnerability. When silver flows became unstable in the 17th century, the system turned dangerous. If peasants owed taxes in silver, but silver became harder to attain, their real tax burden rose. The problem was not simply inflation. In some places, it was deflation, money becoming too scarce, debts becoming harder to pay, and taxes becoming crushing. So China shows us something important. An empire can be destabilized not only by too much money, but also by a monetary system that no longer matches the needs of society. Money is supposed to make exchange easier, but when the money system breaks, it can turn taxes, debt, and daily survival into a trap. The Islamic Caliphates and the Ottoman Empire, money as sovereignty. Across the Islamic world, coinage was also a symbol of authority. To issue coins in a ruler's name was to declare sovereignty. Gold dinars and silver dirhams circulated across wide trade networks. linking markets from North Africa to the Middle East and beyond. A stable coinage helped support commerce, tax collection, and state legitimacy. The Ottoman Empire inherited and expanded this tradition. For centuries, Ottoman money helped connect Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The empire sat at the crossroads of world trade. But like Rome, the Ottomans faced a similar problem. War was expensive. Armies were expensive. Administration was expensive. And as military competition increased, the state needed more revenue. One response was coin debasement. The silver content of the achi, an important Ottoman coin, was reduced over time. This allowed the state to stretch resources, but it also contributed to inflation and unrest. Soldiers, paid in weakening money, became angry. Urban workers felt prices rising. Merchants adjusted, trust eroded. Again, debasement did not single-handedly destroy the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans lasted for centuries after major monetary crisis. But coinage problems revealed a growing gap between imperial ambition and fiscal capacity. When an empire has to weaken its own money to keep functioning, it is admitting something. The system costs more than it can honestly pay for. Spain, an empire drowned in silver. Spain offers a different kind of monetary warning. In the 16th century, Spain became the center of a global silver empire. Huge quantities of silver flowed from the Americas into Europe. On paper, this looked like unlimited wealth, but more money does not automatically mean more prosperity. If the supply of money rises faster than the supply of goods and productive capacity, prices rise. This was part of what historians call the price revolution, a long period of inflation in early modern Europe. Spain had silver, but it also had enormous military commitments, imperial administration, royal debts, and wars across Europe. Instead of building a deep, productive economy at home, Spain often used silver to finance conflict and imports. The empire appeared rich, but much of its wealth passed through it. Silver arrived, creditors were paid, armies were funded, goods were imported, prices rose. Spain did not collapse overnight, but its monetary advantage became a trap. The empire had access to vast money, yet struggled to convert that money into lasting productive strength. This is one of history's greatest lessons. Money is not the same as wealth. Wealth is productive capacity, farms, workshops, skills, technology, institutions, trust. Money is a claim on wealth. If you increase the claims without increasing the real wealth underneath, the system eventually strains. The pattern, how money devaluation breaks empires. So what is the pattern? Across history, empires devalue money for similar reasons. They face rising costs, they need to pay soldiers, they need to fund wars, they need to maintain public order, they need to service debts. They need to preserve the image of strength. But they do not want to admit weakness. So instead of saying, we cannot afford this, they change the money. They lower the metal content, they issue more paper, they expand credit, they manipulate the unit of account. At first, this feels like a solution, but over time it creates 5 major problems. First, prices rise or become unstable. Second, wages lag behind the cost of living. Third, savers are punished because the value of stored money falls. Fourth, trust in government declines. Fifth, people begin looking for alternatives. Foreign coins, barter, commodities, land, gold, silver, or anything that feels safer than the official money. Once that happens, the state loses more than purchasing power. It loses legitimacy, because money is a daily referendum on trust. Every time someone accepts a coin, a note, or a digital balance, they are voting that the system still works. When people stop believing that, the empire may still have armies, palaces, laws, and titles, but underneath, the foundation is cracking. The story of money is the story of civilization. It began as memory, a way to record debt, labor, tax, and value. It became metal, stamped with kings, gods, and emperors. It became paper, backed by law and belief. Today, it is often digital, numbers moving at the speed of light. But the core truth has never changed. Money works when people trust it. Empires rise when their money helps coordinate real production, trade, taxation, and defense. Empires weaken when their money becomes a tool for hiding decline. Rome debased its coins. China struggled with paper, silver, and tax pressure. The Ottomans stretched coinage under military strain. Spain discovered that even oceans of silver could not replace productive strength. The lesson is not that money must never change. The lesson is that money cannot be abused forever. Because when rulers devalue money, they do not just reduce the value of coins or notes, they devalue trust. And once trust collapses, empires often follow. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more deep dives into history, power, economics, money trips, money tips, and the hidden systems that shape civilizations. Money monsters.